about how you get FICO scores above 850. And we'll tell you all about that. But so today is all about FICO, and FICO scoring is, who can tell me what FICO scoring is? What is FICO?
It's your credit score.
Yep.
What does it stand for?
What does the FICO stand for?
Okay, so it is your credit report card. That's exactly what it is. It was put together in the 50s, mid-50s, by a scientist, okay, and a mathematician, okay. And basically what it is it's a credit card it's a report card for your credit. So Fair and Isaacs were the guys that put this together. Bill Fair and I think Curtis Isaac, they were the two. And so therefore it was called, originally it was called Fair Isaac. Then they changed it to FICO, and that's what it's been forever and ever. And this is actually one of the first, kinds of artificial intelligence, okay, that we're going to talk about later. And we'll talk about FICO and how that blends in there too. But right now, so what's the lowest score you can have? If you had the worst credit in the world, what would your credit score be? 4 something. That's really terrible, but it actually starts at 300.
Wow.
Okay, 300. That's the lowest, okay? Now, what's the highest you can possibly get?
I think it's 850.
850. 850 is the highest score you can get, and less than 2% of the population that have credit scoring have an 850, and it's very, very hard to get an 850.
What percentage?
Less than 2% of the people have 850. But we're going to talk about later how people get above 850, okay? I want you guys to start thinking about that and see how that might happen, okay? So the higher the score, the lower the risk, okay? And that's what FICO is all about. Now, the whole idea about FICO scoring was originally just meant to be as an aid for lenders to use, just as an aid, one more thing to look at. It later became one of the most important things to look at. You guys know now that when you go and you get qualified by a lender, they're going to look at your FICO, okay, your income to debt ratio, right, okay, that's 2 things they're going to look at, and your down payment, okay. So those are the 3 things they're going to look at. FICO is very, very important. You're going to see in just a minute how important it is. But here's the whole idea. FICO score has really morphed into this really important feature, okay, because FICO is now just not for mortgage lending. Okay, it's used by insurance companies. It's used by employers. So employers, and can they use your FICO score? Of course they do. They look at that, and a lot of companies rate your FICO as one of the highest employment requirements they have for people.
Really?
Yeah. So now, different companies will weight that differently. Obviously, if you were probably going to work in a position to where you're going to give advice on money, you better have a pretty good credit score, okay? Obviously, if you're going to work in an area that didn't deal with money and things like that, maybe it's not as important or not important at all. But they run FICO scores on you, okay? So they're used for all kinds of things now. So employment, insurance, landlords, I mean, they use them, obviously, right? When you look at something and you represent a landlord, the number one thing most agents look at is going to be your FICO, right? Now you might have that application and you're going to look at what their income to debt ratio is and things like that. But everything is about FICO for getting a home these days. If you have a bad FICO, you're in trouble. So very, very important. Now it's very important to us in real estate because you can't get loans without good FICO scores. Not only can you not get loans without good FICO scores, the rate you pay is based on your FICO, and a lot of agents don't know this. So when you call your lender and you say, hey, listen, what is what's the rate? Sometimes it's hard for a lender to tell you what that rate might be. First of all, is it a condo or a single family house? Those are different rates. Is it, what's your down payment and what's your FICO score? All those things will adjust the interest rates you're going to get. So that's why there's not this one universal rate that somebody can say the rates are 5% right now. Now we do that with our clients, and we tell our clients the rates are basically this or basically that. But when they go to a mortgage broker or bank, then they're going to hone in on that, and they're going to be more specific based upon their FICO score and other things. So, okay, So there's 3 credit agencies. These have been around forever: Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian. Those are the 3 and that they run credit on. Now let's say a lender runs credit, he's going to run all 3 of those, okay? And let's say the lender, you have 3 credit scores. Let's say you have a 750, a 770, and let's say you have a 785. What is your credit score as far as a lender is concerned?
770.
Okay, 770? Yep, it's the middle. So anytime even though you run 3, it's not an average, okay? It's the middle one, so it'd be 770. Now, a lot of times you'll find out that credit companies don't have the same score. In fact, they usually don't have the same score, and there's a reason for that, okay? First of all, credit reporting is completely voluntary. No company is required to report. However, FICO gives pricing to companies based upon whether or not they report. So banks get better pricing if they report on FICOs. Okay, so not all companies report. Not all reporting is done at the same time. So you have a different timing on it. And then some lenders, not all companies report to all credit bureaus. Okay, so when you get that, that means that you have this eclectic gathering of information by 3 different companies that only has a degree of consistency to it. But you're not going to find somebody with a 770 score and somebody with a 580 score. Typically, I find the scores run within about 20 to 30 of each other, okay? 20 or 30 of each other. Maybe you can see some bigger splits occasionally, especially temporarily, but generally they're going to be within, and a lot of times they'll be right on or within 5 or 10 points of each other, okay? Well, just remember 3 credit scores. The middle one is what the lenders use, and that is a Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac guideline. Therefore, you're not going to, it's not like there's some lender that uses the highest, the lowest. Those are the guidelines. Okay, so you want to look at A, B, and C paper. Who knows the difference between A paper, B paper, and C paper? Just kind of briefly. Okay?
A's the best.
Okay.
You raised your hand.
Who said that?
You raised your
It's how
hand.
good the loan is, whether the rate's better, how much you have to qualify. I think the C is more like private money, the B is like not Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and A is more Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac.
Yeah, that's really good. So A paper is the best. It's like, you know, you get A in your class, that's the best. That's the paper. It's going to usually be institutional paper, okay? And that's going to be like when we think about mortgages, we really think about A paper. Most of our clients get A paper, okay? B paper is going to be a little bit off. Might be through an institutional lender, but it's going to be, you're probably going to get hit a little bit because of either a low credit score or your ratios are off. So that's usually B paper. And then C paper is, okay, we can get you something, but you're probably going to go to household finance or something like that. It's probably going to be hard money. If it's going to be mortgage money, it's probably going to require more of a down payment, and the rates are going to be really high. So to give you an idea of how much this can affect, this is, I don't know if you can see this from here, but if you've got a 760 to 850, as far as your FICO score, there is no difference from a lender from 760 to 850 in most cases, okay? In other words, you're going to get the best rate out there. I'm just using 5 right now as where it might be. From 7 to 759, you're going to pay 0.25% higher. So if you have a client and all of a sudden you're finding out that maybe the rates that your quote is a little bit lower than the rate they're getting, ask the lender. There might be a good reason for it. And no lender's going to be able to change that if their FICO's off a little bit. So in other words, the 760 and above, that 760 is a magical number. You get to that 760 and you hit the best rates. Below that, you can look at it one of 2 ways. You're not going to be incentivized if you're lower than that. That's one way to look at it. The other way to look at it is you're going to be penalized a little bit, however you want to look at it. I like to look at it positive, that if you have 760 or above, you get the incentive of the best rate. Now, when you start getting down into the 6s and things like that, look at the difference. You can go all the way down to 10% if you've got a 550 credit score. Now, that's going to be almost for, well, it's definitely C paper. It's probably going to require a bigger down payment. It might even require a shorter term, and it's probably going to be done through a private company. Most of the institutionals won't touch that with a 10-foot pole because there'd be no way to sell that, okay? So there used to be a lender years ago, World Savings, that they were pretty good. They were an equity lender. As long as you had 25% down, they'd give you good rates even if your credit score was off a little bit. But through the years, they changed on that, and they got very tough on FICO scores as well. So now let's get into FICO scoring, and because there's actually 5 areas that you're rated in FICO scoring. Okay, so these 5 areas make up your FICO score, and 3 of them are pretty small. They're not as much, but they certainly count. But 2 of them are really big. They're a big deal. Okay, so 35% is your credit history. 30% is basically the amount you owe, and then new credit, types of credit, and then whether or not you are running credit a lot. We're going to look at all of those just briefly. So payment history, number 1 thing. Wouldn't it certainly be the number 1 thing? That's pretty predictable. In other words, are you making your payments? Are you making your payments? Now, not only are you making your payments, what time period is the most important for your credit rating, your FICO score? What time period?
On time?
Recent. Okay, so, like for instance, you could actually have a BK, a bankruptcy, that would be 5 years ago, and that might not hurt you as much as a late payment, that 2 or 3 lates within the last year. The magic number for credit is 2 years. That's the magic number. In other words, most of your credit they're gonna look at that 2-year period, and most of your scoring is to be done from that last 2 years. Now, I have a sheet here that I'm gonna pass around. You can take a look at this. If you have a foreclosure, a short sale, a BK, things like that, then there's certain periods of times that some lenders will not make loans to you. And you're kind of look at that as how long it takes for that to drop off. Like a foreclosure and things like that usually take between 7 and 10 years to drop off. So they still hurt you for a while with that. Unlikely you're gonna have 800 if you had a foreclosure or even a short sale in the past few years. One of the things that really hurts people a lot is if you have something that is on there from a long time ago, a debt that was never settled. And people that report on debt have the ability to kind of maneuver things to kind of hurt somebody if they really want to. If they put something on there that's disputed or it's unsettled, they can put that on there and that can stay there forever. It doesn't come off. Whereas if it, like a charge-off, for instance, a charge-off eventually comes off, it's just charged off. But if they still keep disputed on there, that can stay there and hurt you for a long time. So again, 35% is your payment history, and you need to make your payments on time, for sure. Again, so good credit, by the way, good credit remains forever. It carries forward forever. And that's just one of the nice things that FICO does for us. So, okay, the next is your amount you owe, your debt. So in other words, if you have a lot of debt out there, you're gonna be in a vulnerable position, obviously. So here's the thing that you really like to get to raise this as much as you can. You wanna get as much credit as you can, and you wanna use as little as you can. Now, I'm not saying that going out there and getting as much credit as you can is a good financial principle. I'm telling you that it's good for your FICO score, okay? Because maybe it's not good, but like for instance, if you have a HELOC on your home for $500,000 and you have a $100,000 balance on that, you owe $100,000, that's not gonna hurt you that much because it's 20%, might not hurt you at all. They might look at that and say that's not bad, especially if your payments are current on it. However, if you have a line of credit that would be maybe a HELOC that's only $100,000 and you owed $75,000 on it, less than $100,000, but it's 75% of your credit line, it's going to hurt you quite a bit. So look at this as percentage. It's your available credit, and then what percentage of debt do you have on that? That's what's going to change that. Okay, very important. Now, again, because these are the two biggies, your credit history and the amount that you owe, those things are really important to have. Now, here's the one thing that FICOs don't have. They don't know how much you make, right? So everything comes from the payments you make on things and the credit you have and things like that. It's your history. They can't look in and find out how much you make. They have no way to find that out. So, okay, the next one is your length of credit. A lot of people, like my wife, likes to shop credit cards, and if there's a new credit card that's better for us, she will go get it, okay?
I'm building more credit.
Yeah, she's building points so she can fly. However, she's smart in that we keep a couple credit cards forever. I've got one. I'm pretty sure I have the oldest credit card in here, because there's only a couple people in here as old as me. And I have a credit card from 1972. Anyone have one older?
No, but I do have my same card when I was 17 years old. Same
Okay.
exact card.
Yeah, well, me too. So
Yeah.
I was actually 20. So the whole idea about this is I keep that card. Is it a good card? No. Do I use it? Yeah, I usually use it once every 6 months for something very nominal and small, because it doesn't give me any credits or anything like that. And as soon as it comes due, I pay it. So again, obviously paying off your credit cards is going to lower your debt. And so, for instance, we've tried to have a pretty good limit on our credit cards as we could. When they would offer us higher limits, we would take them, even though we wouldn't use them, because we pay our credit cards off when they come due, okay? We don't extend credit that way. However, it gives us this higher FICO score, okay? Not that we need it anymore, but it does, it helps. And it's, here's the thing. Whether you need it or not, doesn't everyone want to have a good FICO score?
Yes.
I mean, everyone's sharing what they have. So it's always fun to have it. So,
And to your point, if you get new credit cards, then that's you've only had that credit for a short period of time, and that dings you a little.
and that's going to ding you because it's not long. So keep a couple of the old ones on there, okay? And then if you're going to add something new because it's better, then you need to make a decision. That might be good, but it will hurt you when you get new credit to start with.
Right.
Now, when people start shopping and adding credit, if you've added credit recently, then one of the things that they are going to build into their dynamics, okay, their their formula is that you might be looking, you might be having debt, or you might be in financial trouble because you're going out shopping credit. You're getting more credit, okay? So it's good to have that credit there for a long time. So again, try to make a purchase with an old credit card every 6 months to keep it going. That'll help you a lot. Having a credit card that is 5 or 10 years old, it's much better than having all your credit cards that are 6 months or a year old. Okay. So the other one, so it's new credit. Now new credit is just what we kind of just talked about at the end of that, but new credit's only 10%, but they like old credit. So new credit's going to hurt you. Old credit is going to help you. Okay. And new credit also will tie into running credit reports. Okay, yeah.
What if you have an old credit card, but you want to increase the credit limit? Is
Yeah.
that still considered old or considered now new?
I'm not a credit expert. I'm pretty sure that would consider old because
You've been with them.
yeah, you've been with them.
Okay, just curious.
I'm not positive on that, but that makes sense that it would still remain the original date. So, so again, this new credit is good. And when you start running credit reports, some credit reports, if you start running a lot, can hurt you, okay, because they don't like it when you're out running a lot of credit. Running a lot of credit means you're looking for a lot of money, and that means that you might be in financial trouble. However, they understand that people shop two different things commonly. One is mortgages and one is cars. So if you are looking for a mortgage or something like that, and you run them through a mortgage company, there's a thing called reduping, and reduping is basically, a clause they have in there that allows them not to penalize you for running a lot of credit reports if you're running it on mortgages, okay? So generally mortgages will not hurt you if you're running 2 or 3. Now, if you have your lender tell you sometime, don't run another credit with somebody else because it might hurt your credit score, and you're kind of marginal right now, that's probably not true if you're looking for a mortgage or you're looking for a car loan, okay?
So
if you're
run
looking
fast
for-
from that guy, right?
Huh?
Run fast from him, he doesn't know
Well,
what he's
maybe he
doing.
doesn't know the difference because the truth of it is a lot of inquiries does hurt your credit. But they have this little clause, reduping, that kind of covers you for mortgages and sometimes for car loans. They can't always tell if it's car loan or not. So, and remember, when is that going to help you? It's going to help you once you secure that loan, because now they can go back and see that they had 2 or 3 inquiries, but they're all for a mortgage. Okay, so they could hurt you momentarily. Okay, Okay, so new credit. Now the next one is a credit mix, and this one is the easiest one, I think, to make sure that you have covered. And what they're looking for is well-balanced credit. What that means is, obviously, a home loan is good. A gas credit card, that might be good. A Visa, maybe a MasterCard, maybe a May company or something like that. A balance of credit. If you have 6 gas credit cards, then that's not a balance of credit. That's not good. If you have 3 or 4 Visas, that's not good. They're looking for a balance of credit. That means they don't want 20 credit cards, and they don't want 1 or 2. And they don't tell you how many they want, so I can't tell you what it is. But most people would probably think that if you have 3 to 5 credit cards, then those 3 to 5 credit cards would be a balance of credit. If you have 15 or 20, you're going to get hurt on that, okay? And that's one way that you can obviously have them come down. So, so we talked earlier here about, does anyone here have a credit score more than 850? And I got a text message from Kathy the other day, and she's got one that's like 890 or something. What is it? So the question is she special? And the answer is,
Yeah.
yes, she's special, but it has nothing to do with credit. How much is it?
882.
Okay, 882. Okay, the reason she has an 882 is this is a bank trick that they play on you. If somebody tells you, if your lender tells you that you have a credit rating, what they call a FICO or credit rating, and it's higher than what you have somewhere else, are you more likely or less likely to go to them for credit? You're more likely. So when you look at your FICO score, make sure that's from one of the credit companies that they're rating you, because if your bank gives you one, it's probably going to be skewed. And let's say your bank gives you one that's 775 or 780, and you go, oh great, now I can get an A paper loan at the very best rate. No, they can't do it, because they can't use their own FICO score for their own mortgages if they want to sell it to Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac.
Wow.
Okay, so understand that you can be hurt on that. Okay, so again, these are just the little nuances within that. I'm not saying it's great to have a credit score above 850. Okay, by the way, I thought that there's no such thing as a perfect credit score, and I was up taking a jacuzzi up in the Mallorcas about a year ago, and a guy named Kelly who works for Experian said that you actually can get a perfect credit score. Okay, he doesn't even have the formula to tell it exactly happened. He says there are perfect credit scores. I didn't call him a liar because, but I didn't think he was telling me the truth, and so I Googled it, and sure enough, there are perfect credit scores. I've just never had one, so I figured, so yeah.
What's the difference? I heard that when they run your credit for a car purchase compared to a loan purchase, it's different. Why is that? The credit scores.
Well, okay, a FICO score is a FICO score. But what they're looking for with the results of that might transfer differently, okay? So remember that mortgage rates and car rates, your rates are gonna be really changed based upon your FICO score. Your car rates are gonna have a greater spread on what the rate might be than a mortgage rate will be, okay? So that might be the difference there. That's my best answer.
Yeah.
Well, and if you're running it through a bank, maybe the bank's just using their credit scoring
Like theirs.
rather than FICO.
Yeah, they could use theirs,
Yeah,
but
I don't know. It was back in 2010 when I bought a car. I got an 840, but somebody's like, "There's not even that high." I'm like, "I have no idea. I haven't run my credit score in years."
So my best guess, and this is just a guess of what a bank does to create a FICO score higher than that. What they do is they tie into the credit bureaus. They then get their FICO score, okay? Then from that, they have some of their, attaboys that they might give on if you've been a customer for this many years, and if you haven't had any, charges and, different things like that. And they give you a few extra points,
Gotcha.
just laid on top of what is a regular FICO score. That's my guess. No one's ever told me that. I'm just, making this up. So, but that's my best guess of what they do. Yeah.
There's something like 1,000 different algorithms for different products. So shopping for a car,
Yes.
different score than what you're going to get for a mortgage.
That's what I thought.
Mortgage is across the board. It's the same for every lender, what
Yeah.
they're pulling. it's all three. For a car, it's gonna be different, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So there is not one FICO formula. There's FICO formulas for all different products. And what they can do within the FICO formula, and maybe you know more about this than I do, is they personalize it to that industry. Like for instance, if they were going to do it for cars, there might be something more important in there for cars than what would be in there for mortgages. And therefore, you're going to get a different FICO score. So when you go to FICO, they're a publicly traded company. They're a big company. To give you an idea, and I think I got these in the notes, there are 10 billion, I believe, 10 billion FICO scores bought per year. Now understand there's 7 billion people in the world. That means that most people have more than one. So they're used for a lot of things. And there's not one FICO that becomes one formula for all industries, is what you're saying, yeah. Now, how many industries could there probably even be? Probably.
It just keeps increasing and increasing. Last time I had looked it up, it was somewhere around 2,000 or 3,000 different reporting
Wow.
standards.
Yeah. And not only do they change based on the industries, the algorithms, they also change every year. Every year they update them, what they think is more important, and as they get more and more things that they think is important. So, because they keep looking at how accurate they are in their reporting to find out if people are now late in payments or if people have foreclosures, bankruptcies, they have repossessed vehicles, and now they can take that data and they can now change their algorithms for what they're gonna, what's gonna be the next year's FICO formula. And I mean, it's kind of like Coke. I mean, supposedly there's only 2 people that know the Coke formula and they never, they're never on the same plane. I kind of doubt there's only 2 people. I'm sure there's more than 2 people. But same thing with FICO. I don't think there's thousands and thousands of people that have access to all these data. It's probably only their top engineers would really know. But you can figure it out because most of it's common sense, right? And they have come out to tell you as much as what the basic things they're looking for and what percentages they are. And even these percentages that I give you today could be off a little bit based upon how they change them, but they're generally good. So, okay. So that's how you have a FICO score of above this. Now, so you want a free FICO score? You can get a free FICO score if you go to creditkarma.com, and they'll send it to you all the time. I've done that. It's pretty cool. Now, it's free, so free means that that you're going to have to obviously see a lot of commercials on it and things like that. They're going to be offering you loans and different things like that. They're obviously in business, but I'm fine with that. You can turn off the notifications if you want. I think they notify you how often? Twice a month, I think. And they also notify you if it goes up or down more than a little bit. So we buy almost everything on credit cards, but we pay them off automatically before they come due. And so when we have a high balance, we'll go in there and say, guess what? Your credit score has gone down 10 points. It's because we have a lot of charges and that credit card hasn't yet paid off, okay? Because we don't go and pay it off every day. So and as soon as it gets paid off, then I get a notification, hey, guess what? Your credit score has gone up 10 points. So, and they Credit Karma only rates on 2 of the credit bureaus. Not sure which ones they are, but they rate on 2, and they'll show you the 2. What are they?
TransUnion and
Equifax.
Equifax.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting you say that because
There's actually a copy of mine, so.
I went to a class where they were trying to say how to build your credit up, and one of the things was to pay your credit card bill once a week.
Mhm.
So when they go to run it, then it looks like you're doing activities.
Yeah, one of the things
Is that true?
Yeah, absolutely, because the sooner you pay it off. Here's the other thing, a lot of times we get together with a buyer and they say, well, I'm not ready to buy for a year. And we go, okay, well, we'll talk to you, a year from now. No, talk to them right away and get them to a lender. And I really recommend that you go in with them and go through what the lender does. They'll pre-qualify them. They'll look at their credit and they'll say, wait, you've got a lot of credit here. Can you get some of this paid down? Can you do things like that? A good lender can oftentimes change a credit score 20 or 30 points in 2 weeks, okay, by what they look at and by, like for instance, I took a client of ours a couple of years ago up to Tom Richter to get pre-qualified to buy a home. This guy does a lot of traveling. he pays for the traveling on his personal credit card and gets reimbursed by his company, okay? And he had $30,000 of credit card debt that was travel, that was on his credit card, that he had not paid off yet, okay? He's gonna pay it once it comes due and stuff like that. And so Tom said, hey, listen, can you get your company to pay you quicker so you can pay this off right now? And he did, and it bumped them up to where they needed to be. Just that single thing. Now, most people don't have $30,000 in travel expenses that they can just go in and do. Another thing is, like a lot of people don't know, if you have a car loan, is it always going to go against your debt ratio? How long is it going to go against your debt ratio? Okay? Until there's less than 10 payments, I believe, 10 payments.
10 payments or less.
10 payments or less. So, when you get down to, let's say for instance, you have 12 payments, you could pay 2 or 3 payments off, right? And now that's going to change your ratios a little bit. Maybe a lot, depending on what your car payment is. So, so if you can get to a lender, how much can you do for somebody that can meet with you? Are you a lender?
Yeah.
Okay. How much can you do for somebody that meets with you on average? The average person, how many points do you think you'd shave off if they just did some basic things they could probably do?
Probably 20 to 30.
Yeah.
And the time frame varies depending on their credit profile.
Yeah.
Some people you might be looking at 60 points.
Okay.
Right. So.
Yeah. So that, that can change a lot. And so get to the lender. You want to see them right away, not when they want to see them right away. So you have a strategy. Maybe that strategy is you need to start paying off some of that debt. Maybe it's student debt and it doesn't show, right? And so you say you don't have to worry about that yet. But they can strategize with you. What they can do ahead of time, especially if they have a run at it, might change, what the house you could buy drastically, down the road. And some people can qualify, they don't even know it. They have no idea. And then there's the other people, right? They think they can qualify and they can't. You get those people too. Okay. So you're going to get the free offers when you go to creditkarma.com. Is this the only, do you know of any other free credit scores?
If you want a true credit profile, you can go to free credit report or annual credit report. I'd have to look up what the actual is.
Yeah.
That is a true credit score. It will give you all 3 bureaus.
Uh-huh.
When you start going to Credit Karma, you start going to other websites like that, a lot of times you'll see that their numbers are actually off from what the bureau itself is reporting, right? So I was on the phone with somebody I'm working with right now, and she had gone to another lender. I know that lender, I had talked to him, he told me what the score was. That's where it came in at when I pulled it, because there is a credit shopping window where you can have your credit pulled multiple times without it hurting it. She said her credit score was here, and then she checked the next day, and now it was down here, and then it was back up again. So it does fluctuate unless you're looking at a true credit report, like all 3 bureaus.
And what's the one thing when you buy a home that you want to make sure you tell every borrower? I'm saying borrower now, not buyer. No new credit from now until the time you close, right? No new credit on anything. Okay. So, by the way, you're teaching the class next time. I'd love to, a great class would be, 25 things we can do to improve your credit score if I can meet with your, borrower soon enough. Things like that. Because it's magic what they can do. So, okay, so need help with finances? There's a lot of good programs out there, and remember, sometimes having your best FICO score and good financial principles kind of collide. The idea that you want to have a lot of, credit and things like that. I think sometimes they do collide a little bit. I think sometimes it's best, the old thing that, you tell your borrower, hey, you spend everything on credit cards. So what we need to do is put only one credit card, and you put a block of ice in your freezer, okay? So that you can only use it in case of emergencies, because you're not going to carry that block of ice around, right? Okay. And so you do a little plastic surgery. You cut up all the credit cards, and that way they stop using them. Because what happens when we teach a premarital counseling and a mentor, for people in our church, and one of the chapters is on finance. And one of the things we see a lot is that they don't value, plastic doesn't value what money really is. My dad used to tell me that anytime you you buy something with a credit card, visualize $1 bill stacked up in front of you. That's how much you're paying for it. Okay, not just swipe it. Okay, and then the other thing is divide out what your hourly rate is worth. I mean, if you make $51 an hour, you make $100,000 a year. Okay, so if you make $100,000 a year, that's $51 an hour, and you're going to spend something that's going to be $200. It's going to cost you, 4 or 5 hours after deductions to be able to afford that, right? So look at it that way, and when you make that Amazon purchase, as opposed to looking at it the other way. So I love Dave Ramsey. I think he's got one of the best financial courses out there. There's also some other Crown Ministries has a good one. The other thing you can do, which is kind of like meeting with a lender. I would always meet with a lender first. But if you have a mess on it, or not a mess, but some more complicated things, you can go to a credit repair company, and they can be successful. But understand that they're in business. Have you had good luck with credit repair companies?
Some, right? And a lot of lenders will actually work alongside a credit repair company where it's cheaper. But sometimes it can hurt you before it helps you.
Yeah, so definitely without the advice of a lender, I would not use them. Because half the time I think the lender can do everything they can do and it won't cost you anything. And like you said, the other time they might do something to harm you. So yeah, Jan?
Just a fun note that I can't help but share. Dave's dad was a professor of finance at the University of Utah, and he lived by the theory that if you can't afford to pay cash, you can't afford it. And that's kind of Dave's theory too, which much to my chagrin is, the way it is. But we use credit cards, but we pay them off. We use them mostly so we can get miles. But his dad, in his first class, he would pass out scissors, and he would have everyone pull out their credit cards, and he had everybody cut up their credit cards.
Plastic surgery, day one, yeah. I mean, that's good. I mean, it's the idea. My dad gave me plenty of financial advice. I needed it. But the idea was there's 3 types of people. There's, one person that they buy things with money they don't have. It's the old thing. They buy things with money they don't have to impress people.
Yes.
They don't even
they don't even know.
No,
Or
yeah.
no, they're, I don't know, whatever it is.
Yeah. And then they show.
And so you're always buying on credit. Not only you pay the cost of the product, you're also paying the interest on it. I've always kind of liked the idea that you try to get yourself to a point that you only buy things on credit that appreciate. Okay, a house appreciates. A car doesn't. At some point, early on, we drove used cars early in the business so I could pay cash for them. Okay, they'd be 3 or 4 or 5 years old, decent cars, but I could pay cash for it rather than taking out a loan for it. Because imagine this, you're paying interest on something that depreciates. It's going the wrong direction both ways, okay? Now, a mortgage on a house, that's smart. So the one type of person, they're paying interest. The other is they only buy what they have money to buy, and that's really great, nothing wrong with that. And then the third person is a person that not only they buy things with cash, but they also, in addition to that, they have people paying them interest on things. And whether it's a retirement account, I tell young clients, first 2 things I want you to do. I want you to get, first, number 1, all your bills paid off, okay? Number 2, and number 3, in this order, buy a house and get your retirement account going, okay? And you can start putting money in an investment that's pre-tax dollars and you don't pay any taxes on it for 20, 30, 40 years. It's amazing what that can do with the government's money. And then later, by the time you're now it's 72 years old, you have to start taking that out. But by then you're probably making less, and you have all those years of government use of money to increase your estate, which is a great thing. So, okay. Couple fun facts just on FICO. The median FICO score is 723. Here's another one. This surprised me. I assume it's true. It comes from the internet, right? Everything's true from the internet. That each generation has a higher FICO score than the previous generation on average. That shocks me. I mean, that shocked me. Okay. 13% of scores above 800. That ring true about what you see? There are 10 billion FICO scores sold each year. There are only 7 billion people in the world. I told you that earlier. There's an online dating service, creditscoredating.com.
Oh wait, tell me that again. I need that.
creditscoredating.com.
Okay, got it.
I'm doing that.
But here's the thing, Ruth, let's be honest. I've never been on a dating site because I've been married for 44 years, but so if and they didn't have dating sites back then. I had to meet somebody on the school bus. But anyway, if you look at this and the regular dating sites, the pictures on there look nothing like the people in person. Do you think what they told you they're worth dollar-wise is going to be anything like?
But I'll run their credit score.
You'll run their
I'll
credit
call
at
them up,
least.
yeah.
Yeah, okay. Okay. So to get the highest credit score you can get, you'll need both credit cards and a mortgage. You cannot get super high scores without though. So if you have a cash-only person, they're gonna need to have some credit cards.
Well,
I
they
know
don't
that-
need to get a loan.
Well, not credit cards, but
They don't need to.
yeah,
They're all
and a
cash.
house is gonna get you that. Yeah, so it's kind of what comes the cart before the horse. You don't have a house, but you need a good credit score to get a house.
Right.
So, anyway, by the way, one of the credit bureaus just started a new program, which is basically for renters, and it's boosting their credit scores. Have you heard about that? What's your name, by the way?
Eric.
Eric, yeah. So, have you heard about that? I think it's Aspirian.
So where you can actually report your rental history.
Yeah.
And it improves, just like a mortgage rating or mortgage history. You can have your landlord or, you can self-report
Yes.
your rent.
I think
right?
that
To
sounds
where
great.
improve-
That's
For young people who need to start really building their credit,
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's cool.
And there are loans out there nowadays where you could go for pure mortgage rating or rental history. 30 to 36 months of that instead of going credit score.
That's great. I mean, and by the way, what you'd mentioned, so the free credit report is annualcreditreport.com,
Yes.
not credit reports, credit report, okay? The credit reports is gonna have you sign on there, they're gonna make you think it's free, and all they're gonna do is sell you stuff and never give you a credit report. So it's credit report, annualcreditreport.com,
Yes.
not credit reports, okay? Okay, any questions before we kind of move on to artificial intelligence? Another,
I have a question.
yeah.
So let's pretend like in the future a client asks where to guide them to start their retirement account. What's a good source?
Well, I mean, most of them, first of all, with their company, do they have an IRA or something like that? Early on in real estate, I had a self-administered retirement account because I want to be able to make deeds of trust and things like that. So you can also do that. But I would just have them meet with somebody who specializes in setting that up.
So like a financial advisor.
Financial advisor would be great for it. Now, I have my own theory on financial advisors. Everybody here, by the way, should read the book by Tony Robbins, Money. It's a great book. Have you read it, Eric? Did you like it?
I loved it. I love all that Dave Ramsey.
Yeah, I think, yeah, Ramsey's great, but this book, there's two versions. One is like 700 pages, one is 400. I read the long version. I loved it. I could almost do a training on that book. It was so good. By the way, and when you look at Tony Robbins, you say, hey, this guy never even graduated college. What does he know? He's the guy that goes out and researches stuff and then reports on it. None of the advice he gives on money is his own. It's all from the richest people in the world and the top hedge fund advisors, things like that. I could talk about it forever. It actually moved the needle on some of the things that we did from it. It's a really great book to read. So, but I would definitely read that book. It's a great book.
Is it in the hub?
It might be in the hub, but it might be gone by now. So. Okay, let's get into artificial intelligence. So, artificial intelligence is a computer trying to figure out what people are going to do in the future, right? That's all it is. Okay, so everyone's calling it artificial intelligence or AI. That's the words that are used out there. And it's the big buzz that everyone's trying to figure out today. By the way, real estate companies are now, I know that Compass and Keller have both sold the fact that they have programs that do artificial intelligence for real estate, okay? I'm going to debunk those in a minute, but they've got them. By the way, anyone can have them because I can say I have this and it can, basically tell you, whatever I program is what it's going to say. So the computer is only good as the programmer, right? And I haven't heard this saying in like 20 years, but there used to be a saying, garbage in, garbage out, okay? So it's only as good as the data that's put into it and how you use that to be interpreted, okay? But the best predictor of future behavior is what? Past behavior. So in Sociology 101, I learned that day one, the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. And so when they look at what you've done in the past, that's the most important thing. So the computer's only going to be as good as the programming. But by the way, this artificial intelligence is what everyone's going after. And believe it or not, they're getting really good at it, okay? So we talk about what's the best predictor of future behavior. So the next one I want to talk about, this is really interesting. So who collects information on us these days? Okay, let me just give you an idea. Throw some out. Who collects information on us?
Credit card numbers.
Credit cards. Yeah, who else?
Facebook.
Eric, what'd you say?
Social media.
Social media is huge. Okay, what else? And a lot of people think it's social media, it's what you put in there as your bio and stuff. No, it's every single comment you make is scraped off of there. Every comment you make is scraped and then put into data and used to determine something about you.
Cookies on websites.
Yeah,
There you go.
Google, everything you Google is on there. I mean, I talk to Alexa at my house. Alexa listens to everything I say. Did you know that? Okay, Alexa, everything you say, Alexa listens to. And she knows. You know that when you buy an iPhone, it is automatically programmed to find out your location of everywhere you go. You must turn that off. The default is on. And by the way, before you turn your iPhone on, you already agreed to it and the terms that you certainly read those 145 pages, right? So they know everywhere you go. My location services, I think, are still on. I could go there and I could show you everywhere I've been, okay? Just data out there is, they get everything on you. I remember going into, listing presentations before, and I would take in a property profile and just show my sellers the loan they might have on there, the deed of trust they signed, or how much they paid for their property. And they said, how'd you get that information? Public, it's been around forever. You can find out this stuff. And they were like surprised. Well, most people aren't surprised about that right now, but people really are surprised. Your phone app, everything on there is that you do on a phone app is recorded. All the strokes that you make. Twitter, TikTok, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, banks, credit card companies, government agencies, cell phones, Google searches, any
Cars.
search. DMV, okay? Insurance companies, title companies, law enforcement, county recorders, obviously FICO, and now IRS just announced they're using Facebook, okay? Facebook to have a determining factor in audits, okay? So don't put anything on your Facebook that is anti-IRS. What you should be saying is, I hope everyone here is paying your taxes because I do. Because if they see that, they may not audit you.
Yeah, that would be a red flag.
So, there's a saying that has been around for a long time, it's not used very much, that if I can see your checkbook ledger, I can tell almost everything about you. Well, now we don't have the checkbooks like we used to. Everything is, Apple Pay and different things. But just imagine when all of these companies collect all this information, far more than what you even think, far more. And then they know how to dissect that because they have people that's what they do. And then they put it together, and then here's where it gets scary.
Oh, that's not scary?
No, that's kind of scary. Now they share it. So this isn't just one company has this. They actually sell it, okay, to other companies. And now that means that you can get all of this information. Because Facebook, do you think Facebook, was worth billions of dollars before they ever went public, when they never had an ad? Why? Because they sold information on you, okay? And why could they? Because you agreed to it. You agreed to it, okay? So all of those things are on there, all of that information. Now, what's really interesting is, and I started to see this 4 or 5 years ago when Facebook advertising really started to blow up, is that all of a sudden, all the ads on there are all the things I just bought. I just buy a new pair of shoes, and guess what? I got an article on there, an ad. Those shoes look almost identical to what I almost just bought, okay? Well, that's what they do. Our sons, in one of the divisions they had of their companies, they were spending lots of money for Facebook advertising. During a period when they were really doing a lot of that, they were spending $25,000 a day in Facebook advertising, okay? And was it returning? Yeah. Why was it so good? Because what they could do is they could basically take just the people they wanted to get to, okay, and sell to. In other words, they could micromanage hyper target who they were looking for. So if they had something, like for instance, when I turned 65 years old a couple years ago, I got all these commercials about, signing up for, Social Security and things like that, come to the free classes. Why? Because they knew how old I was, and they're going to start selling me things like that. Now, there's one industry that restricts greatly what we can micro-target, and that's real estate. They don't let us go in and do demographically or anything else. But almost every other industry has the ability to micro-target to find out what they have there, and therefore they find out that much about you. It's scary how much they find out about you, what they know. I mean, it's just absolutely amazing. About 20 years ago, we went to a social event. It was one of our kids' high school social event, and we had one of the other fathers there come up to us and start talking to us, and this is what he did. He gathered information. Now, 20 years ago, far less than what they have right now. He went on to tell us things about ourselves that nobody in this room would ever know. That wasn't bad. I was not a serial killer or anything. But, and I think the reason he shared it wasn't like bad stuff, but how much did he know about us? It was scary, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be weird by today's standards, but back then it was freaky weird.
Yeah, so it's the reason why a credit card company might deny a purchase from you when there's something locally that's bought, because you never buy that stuff, okay? I got declined at a credit card at McDonald's a few years ago, like a year and a half ago, because they knew I didn't buy at McDonald's, okay? And so, and not that I went to McDonald's, but Angie would always get it or whatever. I just hadn't gone in so long, they denied the charge, okay? So, because I didn't go there very much. They know where you go and what you do, and now they've got those kind of biorhythms down of what you do. If you do something that's not like you, that's when they call you and say, did you make this purchase? And guess how many times you didn't make it, right? A lot of times. Okay, so they collect all these information. All these companies are going to know a great deal about you, then they're going to share it, okay? And they share it, and companies make big money, billions of dollars selling this information. Last year, or a couple years ago, it was $20 billion was the amount of money that was spent in the United States alone for buying information on people, consumer data, as they call it. Smaller companies use what's known as data brokers to buy stuff, because they just buy what they need from the companies that they need, and they're not a big company. They don't know how to do all this, and they don't collect a lot, so they just go buy to a data broker and then they buy it. So that's what artificial intelligence. So here's the pros and cons of this. So what are the cons of this? I mean, what don't you like about all this information?
Well, that they have it.
That they have it, okay.
It violates our privacy.
Yeah.
Yeah, violates our privacy, right? Okay, violates our privacy. And it's very invasive. There's a lot of things they can do. I mean, we haven't even talked about wiretaps. Did you know that once you put the trash out in your front yard, it is public domain?
Oh my God.
What could we tell about you if we went through your trash? FBI, that's one of their big investigative procedures they do. They go through the trash, okay? Because what could they tell from your trash? Probably a lot. More than just what you eat, okay? They can tell a lot on you. So your trash is public domain. Now, if you see your neighbor going through your trash, all you have to say is, oh, that's public domain, help yourself. But I mean, would you like your neighbor doing it? Wouldn't you feel very invaded? But it's public domain, so.
Where do you know that? How do you know that?
That's on TV.
Is it on TV?
Yeah, you can Google it. Everything's true.
No, I'm just saying that, I mean, it's public. I'm
Yeah.
just curious.
Well, I know that the FBI has done that, and so I actually Googled that to make sure they can, because I know
Yes,
they do
that's
that.
what I-
Even if the trash cans are on your property, what if they're not at the curb? What if
Well, I
they're
don't know
on
what
your
that limitation-
driveway?
I think once you put them out into a place they can be picked up,
Yeah,
then
then it's
you've
public
given it
street,
over.
yeah, alright.
So,
Wow.
so if you're a private person, you don't like this, you don't like the invasion, just the idea of it, a big brother probably bothers us. For me, I like it more than I don't like it, honestly. I like getting the ads of things I might buy as opposed to ads I don't like, okay? And the things that I wouldn't want them to know, I can't think of what it is I wouldn't want them to know, really. I mean, and I'm not perfect, I'm just saying, I just can't think of the negativity other than it is a huge, it's a huge violation of privacy, huge. I mean, wiretapping is not nearly as invasive as collecting everything else about you, where you were at, what you did, how much you spent, when you spent it. I mean, they know your buying habits more than you know your buying habits. So, okay, so here's the question: how is this going to help us as realtors? And the number one way that artificial intelligence is being used, and this is what Compass and Keller Williams has said they use it for, is they use it to project when a seller is more likely to buy than not. It's the only area right now.
Sellers.
Sellers, yeah, sellers. They can't tell buyers. I don't think they, although maybe they can, but they haven't tried to put that together yet. Which means that if you knew of a neighborhood that was about ready to sell, and in this market, you want to go out and get a listing, I only go to the houses that are most likely to want to be selling, right? However, in my opinion, I can't imagine any way that they can put together a program that's going to be highly, effective, because what can you do? You can say, well, they've been there that long,
I know, it doesn't make sense.
therefore they're likely to sell. So Orange Coast Title has this app. Last year they were in a meeting and they said, okay, we've got this app and it tells you if people are likely to sell. So I looked our address up, I'm likely to sell. I can tell you, we're not likely to sell. I'm gonna leave, we bought this place after our kids were gone. I'm leaving that place with a toe tag on, okay? And yet they're saying that I'm a likely seller in the next 12 months. I'm not. So what this is gonna do if we rely on this is, first of all, we're gonna step over clients that we could be working with, that we might work with, in lieu of others we think will. And I still believe, this is an edism, I have no proof, I didn't get this off the internet, that this business always has been and always will be a personal business, that creating relationships is the most important thing, and staying in touch with your clients, all of them, not only part of them, will be productive. Somebody would say, I had a client one time call me, his name was John Hess, he lived in Dove Canyon. He goes, I got great news for you, I'm moving to Colorado. I'm a CPA and they offered me a piece of the firm, I'm leaving. So I got good news for you. I said, why is that good news for me? That's good news for you, John. He goes, because you're gonna sell my house. I said, yeah, that's not good news though. He goes, that's not good news? I said, no, first of all, I miss you. Sure, I'll get a sale, but you refer me somebody every year. You gonna refer me people from Colorado? I don't do business in Colorado. This isn't a good phone call, John. I'm still liking the fact that, and I appreciate everything you've done. You're more valuable here than gone. According to artificial intelligence, their only value is when they're selling, not who they're giving you. So it can't take that into account. So just that alone, in my opinion, is the fly in the soup. That means that alone, I really don't care about it. Now, of course, if they could be more likely to tell if you're likely to sell, if you look at Zestimates, I can only figure one way that they can really come up with Zestimates, and it's this way. Maybe a slight version off of it. Eric, use your mind on this to tell me if you can think of any way other than how I'm thinking to come up with value. Take when the buyer bought the home. When you go forward, every few months, update what the appreciation rate might be, and that's the new value of the home. Can you think of any other way? Because if they go in, they can't see if you remodel. They don't know. They don't have somebody out there. They don't have a drone flying over, seeing if you remodel, and they're gonna put that in there. They're not gonna see if you have 4 kids and you tear that house apart and so it's worth less. They can't do that, okay? They can't do that. The only metric I think I can imagine they can use is just time and appreciation. Other than that, what can they do? They can take the appreciation in a smaller area, not the nationwide. They can maybe just take Mission Viejo and apply that. And if that seller's moved in there, they kept the property in generally good condition, okay, and it might be somewhat accurate. But no more accurate than what we could do by knowing that it sold 5 years ago and the appreciation rate has been 5%, 6%, 7%, 4%. Add those up and we can do that too. Here's the good example. If you take what anyone who wants this article, I'll send it to you. But the CEO of Zillow had an assessment on his house of $1.75 million, and it sold for $1.1 million. Now, he missed it by 35% on his own house.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, did he potentially inflate his estimate that would be higher in order to, give a kind of a false rating on his home? I don't know. But if his is that bad, I mean, it just tells you his estimate's that bad, and I don't think that artificial intelligence is going to play the role that they think. Let's not leave what we're doing right now to go there. Yeah.
You don't think it takes into account comps, do you?
Oh, I think it does.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It
but
does in recent closed sales.
yeah, it can do the recent closed sales, but aren't the recent closed sales
Based on.
just based on appreciation?
He's kind of saying the same
Yeah,
thing.
so you're right. But it's pretty much the same thing. They take in the comps, they take what's happening, they roll that in, and maybe what they do is they take a bunch of comps and they try to weight them of what they might be, and they can do that. I think they've got some algorithms that are a little fancier than what I just talked about, a little bit, because they're probably a little smarter than I am. But I don't think they can be drastically different than that. I mean, I just don't. And that's why they're so far off. By the way, you should never go to a listing without knowing this estimate.
Right.
You may or may not want to share it.
Good point.
But you should always know what it is.
They're gonna know.
Because they're gonna probably know, and if you don't know, it's one piece of information you should have. So I always think there's 3 things you should go to listing with, and this is, getting off. One is, you should go to the listing with this estimate, okay? The other thing is like being prepared and all that kind of stuff. But you should also make sure you ask that seller what they're looking for in an agent, because you won't know unless you ask. They might have some special things they're looking for, and you should tell them how important their business is. If you go to any appointment, don't cover those 3 items, then I think you've really kind of lost it. Now, certainly prepare, take comps, listing presentation, all the rest too. But those are 3, make sure you hit those simple checkpoints. So, okay, so again, I don't have this enthusiasm about artificial intelligence for real estate, but I have a great confidence for all other industries, yeah.
Do you think that companies like Compass and KW are taking into account data from customers who are like doing home searches online and like kind of like on Zillow all the time, and then that's what's saying like, oh, this person is likely to sell because they're looking at Zillow or
I would
realtor.com?
think that should be a part of it. I would
Yeah,
think it should
okay,
be.
so what
think
that
that could be a
is
factor.
more of an advertising and data that they sell.
Yeah.
That's data that they will sell. And they can, but here's the problem with, remember I said earlier, the problem with homes is that because we cannot micro-target, they can't micro-scrape, okay? Like other industries, if people are going in there buying a certain type of shoes, you can go in and you can put your demographic age, you can put single, you can even put how much they make and advertise to that person. But you can't do it in real estate.
Can't do it in housing.
Can't do it in housing because of HUD. HUD doesn't allow us to do that. So because of that, that's going to restrict the ability for them to get that micro-targeting information scraped because we can't advertise by that. That's one of the reasons why our Facebook advertising isn't as effective as it could be. Can you imagine this? So like we do premarital counseling. We don't do ads for this, but we could do ads for a premarital counseling class, and we can just send it out to people that have announced their engagement within the last 30 days. And we only have to pay for the people that it goes to, the numbers, based on that. Now, is that helpful? Now, we don't do that, but if we wanted to do that, how great is that? That's why Facebook advertising and Google advertising is so productive, because the ability to micro-target. Yeah.
But along those same lines, you could also, again, taking into the idea that certain behaviors would indicate that people might be going to buy a home. If the family's expanding, if they're pregnant and having another child, they might, if they're getting married, they might want to now purchase a property together. So you could target those areas without, doing that a little bit.
So if you were to do that, like let's say one of the things you might target is you might say, I'm only gonna send out mailers to those areas to do that. Well, then you lose all your ability to send out bulk at bulk prices, because now you're sending, individual ones. So it's gonna cost you 3 times more, so you better make sure that those houses are really
That
active.
social media advertising
Yeah,
you're talking.
but even social media. So do I think that it'll play any part in real estate? Maybe a little bit, but for the people that want to rely on it as their future business and not, going after creating relationships, I think you're going down the wrong road. And, there's an old Chinese proverb. If you're going down the wrong road, no matter how far you've gone down that wrong road, turn around. Because after all, you're on the wrong road.
Yep.
Okay? So that's why I'd say, now, and if artificial intelligence does become good, then everybody has it, and I think everybody will have it, then it wouldn't be that fantastic either. So anyway, there you go, just my opinion on artificial intelligence. I think it's gonna play a huge role, already does in so many areas, but I don't think real estate's gonna be at the top of the list, okay? So as far as going to every seminar on artificial intelligence and trying to put everything together based on that, I think I'd stay with creating relationships.
Door knocking.
Yep.
I agree.
Door knocking.
Yeah, door knocking. I mean, you talk about somebody who sold, thousands of homes here from door knocking, and if you'd sit there, trying to figure out artificial intelligence, you might be, same thing, right, Jack? Pam, so. Okay, any questions on this? Okay, we've got an hour, so that's it, guys. Thanks for coming.